So he's asking if there is a side effects for having too many connections. Is that right? Well, first of all, antidepressants do have a lot of side effects, and you probably, if you're a little bit familiar with this area, I mean, a lot of you pre-meds, so I guess you might be interested in it. So a lot of antidepressants do have a lot of interesting side effects. On this picture, it doesn't show this, how strong is the connection, so the first connections are very weak. And if you use it a lot, connections getting stronger, thicker. So all of the new connections are very weak, and they can produce very strong signals. And of course, they are unstable. So if you not start using them, they will be disassembled one more time, if it answers your question. Either way, yeah.
Does that mean you get dumber if you take too much antidepressants?
She's asking if you get dumber if you take too much antidepressants. If you take too much of anything, you can die. That's for sure. So the reason is antidepressant is faking the natural process. It gives you serotonin, which indicates that something important is going on. Let's grow some neurons. But actually nothing important is going on in reality. So whatever is built will be destroyed, and you will have to get an extra dose of antidepressant in order to come back to the same state. Because neuroplasticity is just a side effect. Serotonin also gives you a sense of well-being. Serotonin is a happy hormone. It gives you a sense of well-being. If serotonin is low, you feel sad. Sadness is coming. So neuroplasticity, you don't necessarily feel it, but you do feel the low serotonin level. That's fine.
So kind of switching gears here. Does the size of the amygdala change the ability to produce certain hormones?
Does the size of the amygdala change the ability to produce certain hormones? Size of the amygdala. I've never heard that variation in size could matter. Activity, though, matters a lot. So while I was talking, I was saying, oh, cortisol activates amygdala. Oh, dopamine activates amygdala. So amygdala could be inactive and active. If you saw ants have tiny brains, their brains you have to see under a microscope, and they do just as well as human brains, and they're tiny. So I don't think size matters as much as the functionality and activity of the neurons. So he's asking how long we need to take antidepressants in order to completely restore the network. Well, first of all, antidepressants don't completely restore the networks. Statistics shows that 20 to 40% of people get better after the treatment. No, majority of them get better, but only 20 to 40% better. That's it. So it doesn't completely return person to normal state. It just mimics. It eliminates the symptoms. It's fighting low serotonin level. It's not fighting the absence of having a healthy network. So if person doesn't do anything except for taking antidepressants, it will maintain the higher serotonin level, which will mimic a well-being. They will feel better. And they might be more motivated to do things, because sometimes depressed people just not having energy and motivation to even go outside. So I think for difficult depression cases, it's important to take antidepressants, just to get the motivation to start going and doing and using those networks. But eventually using the networks is what will keep it stable. So the question or suggestion is to combine those two approaches, antidepressants and physical activity, and this is one of the strongest approaches so far. I've read several books on exercise and mood, and they do say that combination of two makes it more successful. So another suggestion is psychotherapy and depression. Psychotherapy is, I think it's even more effective than antidepressants. It helps people to switch moods. So it's a whole different lecture. But people who are depressed, remember the movie? Have you seen the movie? When sadness comes, everything becomes sad. If you're sad, you want to be more sad. That's a cycle. And what people do is they get into the cycle, and once you're sad, everything you think of is sad. All the memories you recall are sad, because you don't recall sad, happy memories when you're sad. It's funny. When you're in a sad mood, everything is sad. So what therapy does, it helps people to switch from a sad mood into a happy mood. And it's commonly combined with the antidepressants as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why is depression so popular among so many people?
So, yeah, that's a good I was looking at it too, and it seems like highest groups are those. My personal opinion, this is an age when most people graduate school and start working. I think that when people stop learning, that's when they drop their happiness levels. Remember I was talking about flow and staying in the flow and challenging yourself? This flow channel? So while you're in school, all of those tests, exams, and assignments pushing you to get your skills higher and stay in the flow. But once you graduate and you're done with your studying, you don't have to get better. You got the job, you're good.
25, isn't that about when you get married?
Good job, Tom, good job. That's a general approach.
If I could join in the discussion, that's just absolute numbers, right?
Yeah, that's absolute
so that's
numbers.
not telling us the proportion of that age group in the demographic. Because demographically,
that's right.
different age groups are going to have different numbers. And so what we really want to know is the percent of 25 to 44-year-olds and 45 to 64-year-olds compared to how many there are in the general population. So unless we know that, we can't really make some generalizations and look at 65 plus, well, people start dying. You know,
Exactly.
so
it's less because people are dying, yeah.
Depressed, but because, you know, for other reasons they've passed away. So we can't do much with the hard numbers. But I'd also mentioned that, you know, there's differences in health insurance, right? Antidepressants aren't free. And so if you're a teenager, you may or may not have told your parents that you're depressed or may or not be in treatment. But maybe once you get your own job and get your own doctor, you know, there's lots of things in there, and we can't necessarily draw a lot of conclusions just based on those raw numbers.
Yeah, and some people explain that rise of antidepressant could be explained by the fact that people are getting diagnosed better now than in the past. Possibly depression rates were as high, but now we can see it better.
What about overprescription?
Yeah, overprescription. Pre-med people, don't overprescribe when you get doctors. I'm from Russia, so coming here was very interesting to see that doctors are very ready to prescribe antibiotics and strong drugs, which you need to consider first before you even prescribe it. I noticed it by myself, just going to the hospitals. I was extremely surprised, and especially knowing how many bacteria are antibiotic resistant, and it's the big risk. How easy it is getting prescribed to the population is just scary to me. But I think before prescribing antidepressant, every doctor should consider if there is other alternative methods to help the person. Maybe this person is not getting enough sleep. Maybe this person is not eating well. Maybe this person doesn't have enough social connections. Social support is a huge factor in depression. So before considering those factors, prescribing something would be a mistake, because there are ways to fix it even without medication. Over there. So the question is the difference between anxiety and depression. Depression is when everything is low. Anxiety is when cortisol is high. So chemically, those two are different, even though some people have both. Or one can cause another one. Most of the disorders are caused by imbalance. So if you paid attention to all of those graphs, you probably noticed that it's all about balance. amount of one compared to another one. It's all balanced. And if you get too much of one thing, you can disbalance the rest. So on anxiety, for example, when people worry too much, worry is a high cortisol. Most of the time, I'll tell you, those people don't exercise. Why? Because they don't like the feeling of exercise. Feeling of exercise is a high heartbeat, difficult breath. It's the symptoms of panic attack. They don't like it. Even though they should know that if they do actually exercise and their body gets familiar with those sensations, they will react easier when, oh, I have a heartbeat. It's just when I exercise, it's not a big deal. So a lot of anxieties are also treated with exercise. It's a different mechanism. It's rather getting used to little forms of stress, because exercise is stress. It raises your cortisol level to a little extent and very short term, and has all of those good endorphins afterwards. So it's getting used, people are getting used to experience short-term little stress and say, that's fine, it's great for me. And when they experience stress at work, they say, it's just stress, it will go away. And breathing exercise helps too, but depression is dramatically different from an anxiety because it's low serotonin levels, and it needs to be treated differently. I don't know if I could quite answer that question that quickly. Do you think? Yeah? Okay. Somebody in the back had a question. Or maybe just like scratching. Okay, here.
So Tanya, those of us who have gone through Gen Bio know that you ask hard questions.
Oh, give me a hard one.
I'll ask you a hard one. To which inside-out character do you most relate?
Come on. Joy, of course. I admit myself, I'm very much addicted to natural high. Well, if you can probably notice. I enjoy activities so much. So one of them is going in the nature, for example. Apparently nature, natural beings, nature induces a lot of serotonin and dopamine in the brain. So if you don't like exercise, go to nature. And every time I do something like this, like dancing or going in the nature or do other kind of activities, the next day I feel calm and relaxed, and then in 2 days, start moving around. So when do we go again? Can't wait. And I think it's addiction, but we all addicted at some point. And joy in this movie, which is made actually very, very carefully. I was watching it skeptically, but they did everything right there. And joy is always moving around and excited and maybe overexcited. And maybe joy is the one who needs to learn to cool down sometimes, and which I could practice probably. There is a whole, do I have time? No? There is a whole area about brain waves. So joy is a perfect beta wave. Beta wave is like shh. And when we have a conversation, for example, we are in a beta wave stage. And our society is overwhelmed with beta. Alpha is when you're falling asleep and feeling relaxed. So meditation, for example, is switching from beta to alpha. The second stage is theta. Theta is active sleep, or, for example, if you're running or doing some sort of repetitive activity, that's theta. Theta is imagination and ideation stage. A lot of good ideas come to people in theta when they sleep, washing dishes, or in the shower. And then there is a delta. Delta is a deep sleep. It's a very low activity of the brain. So switching even from beta to alpha for modern society is very difficult. And we overdo beta. We do so much beta that, like me, I couldn't go back to sleep last night because I was so excited, like that joy. And learning the techniques to switching from beta to alpha activity on its own is a whole different book. And exercise helps with it too, because it's a repetitive activity. It helps you cool down mentally. Slow down. Okay. Sophie, you don't have a question for me?
Is exercise addictive, like drugs are?
Right? We discuss it. Depends on the person. I'm addicted. That guy probably not so much as that guy who is running 50 marathons in 50 days. But if it is addictive, I wish you all to be addicted to this kind of addiction. Because, for example, Gabriel, he said he's not addicted to exercise. And he can make him exercise. And we can make a whole workshop on how to make you into exercise. Yes, Gabriel.
So why can I go to the gym and I'm not addicted?
So when you don't exercise, your body will not like exercising. And all you will feel is fatigue and annoyance and boredom, and you will feel so much pain. So people who is getting into exercise program need to start very slowly, and they need to make sure they reward themselves, because endorphins is not getting used to being released. So you have to fake it. You have to reward yourself with, some people log it and say, hey, I ran 2 miles. It's rewarding. It's like boosting your dopamine. Some people buy themselves ice cream after gym. It doesn't matter. The matter is you have to reward the activity, because we do what we're motivated to do. If we don't have motivation, we won't do it. If you don't get endorphins after gym, you won't do it. You have to make sure that you start very slow, building up, and reward every step. For example, some people exercise to lose weight. It may take months before you lose weight. But if you exercise for mood, you will get effects of mood very quickly, almost in a week. You will start getting this feel of relaxation and happiness. But you still have to stick for 1 month. Some people just hate the type of activities they do in the gym. So maybe in your case, you have to find the activity you actually enjoy. I don't run. I cannot run. I can run only if I'm so grumpy and stressed, then I can run. But normally I don't run. But I dance. The question is if the nature of the cause of depression matters. So sometimes depression caused by a strong loss or strong event in life. So it's a complex issue. Of course, it's genetics. It's a lot of genetics factors. But studies show if people who are predisposed to depression exercise, they lower the risk of having depression. Postpartum depression is a very big deal, and for several reasons. First, when you have a baby, you have a lot of imbalance in hormone. Hormonal imbalance leads to depression and other disorders. So before it gets back on track, you can fall into depression, self-feeding disorder. Secondary, when children shows up, your lifestyle completely changes. You don't have time to exercise. You don't have time to sit in a quiet space and having me time. Have you heard about me time, how important it is? You have to have 1 hour of me time every day. Yeah? So when dramatic events in people's life happen, their lifestyle also changes. Sometimes they don't notice it. So getting out of depression in those cases, it's also coming back to the previous state of activity and things that they like to do. So it's a complex. Definitely, when there is a death or something very dramatic, it will be hard. But that's why they say social support is so important to avoid depression. Mm-hmm.
What would you say, like, when you were saying that if somebody died or there was a traumatic experience or something like that, why do some people handle it better than others outside of social support?
So why people handle dramatic events in their lives better than others outside of social support? Tolerance to stress. So it's genetics, tolerance to stress, or again, people who exercise, they have a better tolerance to stress in general. But when significant events in life happened, such as loss of job or loved ones, it's what social supports when comes into play. If there is no social support, then there's not much which could be done. So I would recommend social support is the highest priority when depression is caused by traumatic events. Here. He's asking about music. I could make a whole lecture about music and brain. It's amazing how music affects our brain. And sometimes people think, why music affects our brain? I would start from other perspective. How we write the music to affect our brain. So our ears and brain is fine-tuned to recognize emotions in the voice. We're fine-tuned to recognize emotions in the voice of other people. So composers who write music, they use the timbre and the volume to write music. They're writing down the sounds of emotions. And then we're listening to the music and we're feeling the emotions. So it's not the music is cause us feel. It's people who write the music putting the sounds of emotion into it. So it's really amazing. I was looking into studies how different music, interculturally in different countries, people never heard this classical music before, will cause the same emotions in children and adults across the whole globe, which demonstrate that emotions are universal. And what causes the emotions are also universal between humans. It's like universal language, kind of cool. Yeah.
Tanya, I think some students probably have to go, and I know that we could probably talk about this all day. But, let's thank Tatiana again for...
Yeah. Okay, if you have a desperate question, write it on a piece of paper and leave it for me, and I will send it out somehow.
Don't forget, there's another seminar next Friday.
Thank you for stopping me. It's overtime. Thank you for asking all the way.